Hello, awesome sixth graders. It's Mrs. Lee again, and I'm giving you the next set of notes, the first for this week. Again, I think this is going great. It feels like you guys are coming prepared. I feel like you're understanding the concepts a lot easier and a lot quicker than previously in my previous years in the past. So I feel like this is really worth it. I know you might feel a little overwhelmed with some of these something every night, but again, it is not going to be longer than 15 minutes at the most. And I even believe a couple of them last week were just like a little over 7 minutes. Okay, with that being said, let me get to it so we can be done quicker, I suppose. All right, so tomorrow when you come into class, we are going to talk about absolute value. Easiest thing in the world, truly. All absolute value means it's the number's distance. So it's the distance from 0 on a number line. Absolute value is written using 2 lines, and these I'm going to write parallel. If I can fit it all in there, I can. Parallel lines, written using 2 lines, parallel lines specifically. One, it's going to be 1 on each side or on each side of the number. You can either say absolute value, or you can write it like this with my parallel lines and my number in the middle. Okay, so you would say the absolute value of X or whatever number, or if you see it like this, that still means absolute value. The absolute value is always positive, because it doesn't matter if you go from home to school or school back to home, you're still traveling a distance, and that distance is still in a positive, it's still positive. Okay, so when we're looking at these down here, we're looking, and these are my symbols. Okay, and the symbol, this one here, is the absolute value of negative 39. So even though there's a negative number in here, we're still talking about the total distance that negative 39 is from 0. So even though we're going to negative 39, distance is always positive. So the absolute value of negative 39, I traveled a distance of 39 units to get there. Okay, the same with 87. Even though it's positive, I'm still traveling, and it's a distance of 87 units from 0. Negative 1, I'm traveling 1 unit, and even though it's to the left, I'm still traveling that 1 unit. So absolute value of negative 1 is 1. Absolute value of 61, I traveled 61 units from 0, so I traveled a distance of 61 units. Okay, I think you can do the rest. So I'm going to let you do negative 394, the absolute value of those 5 numbers. Okay, my question right here. Can 2 numbers have the same absolute value? Yes or no? And you're going to explain. Well, so we're looking at some number, and can I have, let's just pick 5. So I want to know if I can put 2 different numbers in for X that would still equal the absolute value of 5. Well, let's think about it on a number line. Okay, here's my 0. Well, we know if I travel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the right, I'm at positive 5. So this X could equal positive 5. But I remember what I said about absolute value, and even if I travel in a negative distance or 2 and then back, I'm still traveling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm at negative 5. I still traveled a total distance of 5 units, so my X could also equal negative 5. And so my answer is yes. I do have 2 numbers that could equal the same absolute value. Okay, and if you think about it, opposite numbers will always have the same absolute value. Okay, so here, if Jeannie has less than $29 in her bank, can she spend $34 on a new dress? Well, no, because we know that the 34 is more than 29. Because on a number line, we would travel further to 34 than we would to 29. Okay, so now we're going to look at absolute value of opposite and absolute value of rational numbers. Well, again, don't forget that absolute value, it doesn't matter if my numbers are rational or if they're just integers or whole numbers. If I'm talking about absolute value, I'm still talking about the total distance from 0. So when we're looking here at my question here, opposite, and we're talking about what does opposite mean? Opposite, which means the same distance. So let me enlarge that. Yeah, there we go. So same distance from 0. So when we talking about opposite numbers, we're saying these numbers are the same distance from 0 on the number line. So if I'm looking at my number line here, here's 0. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, so this would be 5. And if I want to go and find my opposite number, I'm going to go 5 units in the opposite direction from 0. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, -5. So -5 and 5 are opposite numbers. And again, we just on the previous homework sheet, it says absolute value is just the distance. That's all absolute value is the distance from 0 on the number line. Okay, and on these down here, where there's just some questions. It says find the absolute value of the average low temperature in February, and then graph the temps. Okay, so let's look at February. Here's my February, and the average low temperature is -8.5. So if this is 0, and I want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus half. So I'm going to put it right there and just label that as -0.85. Okay. And then I want to know the opposite. Right here it says the opposite of February's temperature. Well, if I know I went down to a -8.5, so I need to travel the same distance in the opposite direction from 0 on a number line. So my opposite would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus half more. So that would be about right there. And it would be positive 8.5. So my opposite temperature is 8.5. And I know that 8.5 and negative 8.5 would still have the same distance from 0. So positive 8 5/10 and negative 8 5/10, those would still have the absolute value of 8 5/10. Okay, so that is my temperature, or my absolute value of both of those. We want to write February's temperature as a fraction. Well, say it and write it. So 8 5/10. So we could do 8 5/10 as a fraction, but I know I can simplify that as 8 1/2. And we wanted February's temperature, so it's going to be negative. Okay? And now the absolute value of March's temperature. So here's my March. Okay, I want to know -2 6/10. Well, I know 6/10 is going to be a little bit more than a half. So I know I want to go -1, -2, -2.5 would be in the middle. So I'm going to try and go a little bit more. So that'd be -2 6/10. And that's what the temperature is. Absolute value again, what's the distance from 0, which would be 2 6/10. Okay, and then the last little question here, rational numbers in the real world. I think they cut that off. So when you think about that, you're thinking about yards maybe in a football game. Okay, you're talking about sea level. Okay, you could talk about temperatures, obviously, because we just use those. Okay, temperatures. And I'd like you to come up with a few more. Okay, so this video is just a little over 10 minutes. See you guys tomorrow. Have a great night.